Hi, we are going to work on rates today. This is the beginning of the chapter in our seventh grade books where it talks about proportions, proportional reasoning. That includes slope and rate of change. Right now, we're just talking about rates, what they mean, and how to use them. If I can get my page to turn. There we go. So a rate is a ratio that compares values in two different units. It's really important that you write the labels for both. Don't just put 60 over 1. Tell me that it means 60 miles for every 1 hour. Or don't just put 2.93. Tell me that it means $2.93 for every 1 gallon. Because the labels are different, it's really important that we write both labels. It's not like just a standard fraction that shows 1/4, and maybe that means one shaded part out of 4 parts total. These units are different, so we have to put them. In a unit rate, you have a 1 on the bottom. It's showing you how much or how many of the top thing for every 1 or for each of the bottom thing. So I mentioned a minute ago, or a few seconds ago, miles and hours. There's different ways that you can write the same unit rate. You can put 60 miles over 1 hour, or you can say 60 miles slash hour. That slash means per or for every 1. Or you can write it out 60 miles per hour. Some do have their own little abbreviation, like miles per hour is common enough that you can put MPH and everybody knows exactly what that is. Or MPG, miles per gallon. There's things like that that everyone knows, but a lot of them don't have their own fun little abbreviations, so you just need to write out the labels. The other thing that I want to caution you on, you saw on the page before this one example where I used the slash and another example where I used the word per, but I said per for each of them. They both mean per or for everyone, for each. Don't do slash and then still put per. Or I always say in my class, you're being too much of a kitty cat. You don't want to put per on your paper. Get it? But ching. Okay. Anyway. I got to amuse myself at least, right? When you're writing these, when you're setting them up, if your problem has anything to do about money, money will typically go on the top because you want to know how much it costs for each item, not how much of an item or how many items you get for every dollar. If it's anything to do with time, time usually goes on the bottom because you want to know how long something lasts, or you want to know how much water is going to drain in every minute. You want to know how much money you're going to make in every hour, not how many hours it takes to make $1. So money usually goes on top, time usually goes on bottom. Okay, so let's do some examples. To find a unit rate, we're going to divide by the bottom number. And like I said before, you have to write both labels. So what this really means for number 1 here, this really should be written as a fraction. Now, you're not going to have to do this on each one. You just need to remember that whatever's written first usually is your top number. But even more importantly than that, remember I said money typically goes on the top. So this really represents $11.49 for every 3 packages. I want to know how much it's going to cost for every 1 package. That would be my unit rate. So in my calculator, I am going to divide 11.49 divided by 3. And I find out that's going to be $3.85. No, I'm sorry. I misread that. $3.83 for every 1 package. There's my unit rate. It's just a matter of division. Number 2, 2,550 gallons, and then that would be over 50 days. Remember, time usually goes on the bottom. Days, that's a unit of time. So 2,550 divided by 30, I get 85 gallons per day. Number 3, 88 students for 4 classes. So I'm going to do 88 divided by 4, and I get 22 students. I'm just going to abbreviate that per class. Remember, there's different ways to write each of these. So I've been showing you one of each of those ways to write it so far, but all of those mean exactly the same thing. 383 for every one package, 85 for every one day, 22 for every one class. It's always about having a 1 on the bottom. Number 4, 15.6 degrees Fahrenheit in 13 minutes. So I'm going to take 15.6, divide by 13, and I get 1.2 degrees Fahrenheit. You can barely see my decimal for every minute. Number 5, 175 calories and 12 ounces. So I'm going to do 175 divided by 12. Maybe if I can hit the right button. I'm going to need to round this, and it didn't specify how to round. It comes out to be 14.583 with the 3 repeating. Just always look at your directions. It may say round to the nearest whole number, so I would call that 15. If it said nearest 10th, I'd say 14.6. I'm going to do nearest hundredth and say 14.58 calories for every 1 ounce. OZ is the abbreviation for ounce. Number 6, 258.5 miles, so 258.5, divided by 5.5 hours. And I get 47 miles per hour. What I would recommend doing right now is hitting pause on this video. Try 7, 8, and 9 on your own, and then resume the video, and you can see if your work and answers match up with mine. Okay, hopefully you did that. Hopefully you paused it and you tried them. Here's what I get for these. Number 7, I'm going to do 549 divided by 9, and that gives me 61 vehicles in each acre. Number 8, $920 in 40 hours. 920 divided by 40 gives me $23 per hour. And lastly, number 9, 13 apples for 2 pies. So take 13 divided by 2, and you find out that you need 6.5 apples in every pie. Okay, so that's writing unit rates. Now let's talk about how we can use unit rates some more. There's a couple options for this. Option 1, you find the unit rate and then you multiply. So if you know how many words you can type in 1 minute, and I want to know how many words you can type in 20 minutes, I would multiply that by 20. The other thing you can do is set up a proportion. I actually like this method a little bit better. Yeah, it takes a little more time, but what you'll see on the second one of these that I'm going to show you where it says number 11, sometimes the problem won't be presented to where the first number goes on top. The ones we were doing before, the way those were written, absolutely. But sometimes you really have to think it through with what gets divided by what. And if you use a proportion, that doesn't matter. Let me show you. Number 10, it says a machinist can produce 114 parts in 6 minutes. At this rate, how many parts can the machinist produce in 15 minutes? So here is method number 1. I'm going to find the unit rate first. I'm going to take 114 divided by 6, and that gives me, I believe, 19, but I tend to do stupid stuff when I'm making videos, so I'm going to check myself. This is 19 parts in every 1 minute. Now that I know what it is for 1 minute, I want 15 minutes. So I'm going to multiply by 15. 19 times 15 would be 285 parts. So that one was written in the correct order. It was pretty straightforward, but here's how that proportion would have worked. We switch colors so you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to take that first piece of information and just write it as a fraction. And it doesn't really matter which one you choose to put on top. You can do 114 parts over 6 minutes or 6 minutes over 114 parts. Because of how this works out, that order isn't going to affect it. I'm going to put 114 parts over 6 minutes. Now, in a proportion, you have two fractions with an equal sign in the middle. So the rest of that information is what I'm going to use on the second fraction. It says at this rate, how many parts can the machinist produce in 15 minutes? 15 minutes. I had minutes on the bottom, so I need to continue putting minutes on the bottom. The key is to be consistent. The part that I don't know is up here. I just wrote mix instead of minutes. See, I told you I do dumb stuff when I make videos. It's like my hand just can't quite keep up with my brain. I'm trying to find out how many parts that is. I had X on the brain, so I was going to write X. The part that you don't know, that's where you put your variable. If writing a variable freaks you out, put a question mark. It doesn't matter. To solve a proportion, the easiest thing to do is to multiply the diagonal where you know both parts. I know both parts of this diagonal, both pieces. So I'm going to take 114 times 15. And that gives me, oh my goodness, now I can't hit the right button. Okay, that gives me 1,710. Then that number that you haven't used yet, you're going to divide by that. So I'm going to take that answer, the 1710, and I'm going to divide by 6. 1710 divided by 6 will also give me that same answer of 285. I know that second method seemed longer, but this next example will show you why I like it a little bit better. So on this one, I'm actually going to start with the proportions. So here, I'll switch to blue so that I'm consistent. It says a recipe that makes 8 jumbo blueberry muffins calls for some reason when I copied this, it was missing the 3, but it calls for 3 teaspoons of baking powder. So I am going to start my proportion by putting 8, I'll just put M for muffins for now, for 3 teaspoons equals blank fraction bar. How much baking powder, so I don't know how many teaspoons, my X goes on the bottom, is needed to make 3 dozen jumbo muffins. Be careful here. It doesn't say 3, it says 3 dozen. There's 12 in a dozen. So 3 dozen, we're actually making 36 muffins. So now is where I multiply the diagonal where I know both parts. So I'm going to take 3 times 36, and then I'm going to divide by the other number that I haven't used yet, the 8. 3 times 36 is 108. 108 divided by 8. I need 13.5 teaspoons. Here's where you run into trouble. If you had tried the other method, it's going to be natural to put 8 muffins over 3 teaspoons, right? And then to take 8 divided by 3, that's going to, I can't talk now, that's going to tell you how many muffins you get for every 1 teaspoon. But what I really want to know is how many teaspoons or how much of a teaspoon it takes for every 1 muffin. Because the part that I'm finding isn't how many muffins, it's how many teaspoons. So what I really need to do then is take 3 teaspoons over 8 muffins. If I divide that, 3 divided by 8 gives me 0.375 teaspoons for every 1 muffin. And now I want to make 36 muffins. So now I can do 0.375 times 36. And that also will give me that 13.5. But that one got a little bit tricky knowing which value to put on top. If you use the proportion, it really doesn't matter which value you put on top. The key is just to be consistent. If I put parts over minutes, I need to keep doing parts over minutes. If I put muffins over teaspoons, I need to keep doing muffins over teaspoons. But that proportion method will help you avoid all the confusion. The last thing that you have to be able to do is to choose the better deal. To choose the better deal, you need to just find the unit rate. Whichever one gives you a lower unit rate, That's always considered the better deal. Now, when you go shopping, maybe for you, it just makes more sense to get the smaller package or to get the bigger box or whatever it is, just depending on what your individual family specifically needs. But when these problems are asking what the better deal is, they're really just wanting you to see which one had the cheaper cost per unit. So on this first one here, $4.99, remember money on top, for 6 cans. I'm going to do $4.99 divided by 6. And that gives me 0.8316 repeating. I need to make it look like money. For money, you get 2 decimal places. So that is 83 cents for every 1 can. On the other one, I'm going to take $7.99, and that's for 10 cans. So $7.99 divided by 10, and then you would round that to the nearest hundredth, because for cents you get 2 decimal places. That one ends up being 80 cents per can. So the better deal is $7.99 for 10 of them. The last problem here, $21.50 for 4 pounds of lunch meats. So I'm going to take $21.50 and divide by 4. Round it to the nearest hundredth to make it look like money. That one is $5.38 for every 1 pound. LB is the abbreviation for pounds. Your second option is $15.10 for 3 pounds. So I'm going to do $15.10 divided by 3. That rounds to $5.03 for every 1 pound. So for this specific problem, the better deal is to spend $15.10 on 3 pounds. Okay, so that wraps up this lesson. You can always subscribe to my channel to keep track of my videos. For my students, I have my link on Canvas. I always post the videos there. That way you can get to them. Don't forget, you can find classroom updates on my classroom Facebook. Parents, you can also contact me that way if you need to. And then there is my school email that you can reach out to me on as well. Hopefully that helped. See you again next time. Bye.